How did your brand get started? I'm sure this is a question that you've been asked at every networking event, on every podcast. And before you go into pitch an investor, talk to a friend, talk to a fellow business owner. Today, I'm going to break down exactly how to pull out your brand story from a public relations angle. We know that public relations and pitching the media and securing press coverage is really all about telling a story and sharing what makes your product so different. I'm going to take you through a full masterclass on this today. So, we're going to talk about what brand differentiation really is, how to find your different, unique attribute that sets you apart from everyone in your industry, and how to turn that into a PR angle that secures press and gets your product or your brand featured. I'm going to share with you some real brands. I think this is going to be really relatable. You're going to know many of the brands that I share. You're going to recognize them from the shelves, from Instagram, from major press features. And by the end, it should be really clear how to identify your brand story and clearly articulate what makes it worth covering. So let's jump in. And of course, if you're new here, my name is Bridget Eileen Cisco. I'm the co-founder of Visibility on Purpose, and we help product brands, CPG brands, entrepreneurs get seen in the media, help them build authority and grow their brands through press features, podcasts, TV interviews without hiring a big agency. And if you're new to the channel, please like, comment, and subscribe. So before we get into the framework, I want to explain why this matters specifically for public relations. So a lot of product brands think brand story is a marketing or packaging thing, and it definitely is, but it's also one of your greatest PR assets. It's what sets your brand apart. When you pitch a journalist, a product editor, you're not pitching just the product. Like here is a package of fennel seeds for digestion. You're not just pitching that, right? You're not pitching just the product itself. You're not pitching the nutrition label. You're pitching a story, right? So, like, why did you start that product? Why is that different? Why is that needed in the marketplace? And whether this editor is writing for Well and Good, Bon Appetit, Forbes, a niche like wellness newsletter, they're looking for a story that's going to resonate with their readers. Or if it's TV, they're looking for content that's going to resonate with their listeners. And I'm going to share, obviously, examples as we go through this, but as a starter example, think about Olipop. Like it is a delicious tasting soda that's healthier for you. And they didn't just make a prebiotic soda, they made a soda that, takes on Coca-Cola with a gut health angle. And they're doing this at a time when consumers are actively looking for better alternatives. So if you're a writer who is in health and wellness, you have this ability to cover a product and really a story that's changing the game, completely changing the narrative. So that tension, we'll talk about this as we go further, it's a story. So if you can't clearly articulate, your product and why it's different, what makes that origin compelling, unique, or what makes, the perspective on what you do different, unique, the pitch is usually going to land flat. And this goes for not just pitching the media, but like if you are introducing your brand in a networking event, if you are looking to talk to retailers, like you need to have this story down pat, looking to talk to investors or buyers. Even if the product's incredible, the story has to be there to back it up. So I'm going to take you through a full workshop today. Like this is something that we would do for brands and different communities, but I wanted to bring it to YouTube. I thought this would be a great place to do this. So let's jump right in. What is differentiation? Differentiation is what helps your brand stand out. It helps it be unique, to be known, to, stand out, even if it's a crowded space, right? You don't need to be new to market and new, completely new. You just have to do something different. So look at these brands. These are brands that you know, these are brands that you trust, maybe you already buy from. Every single one of these operates in a very competitive market. But you know the differences between many of these brands, like Patagonia and Walmart aren't the same. TJ Maxx and Zara, not the same. Patagonia and Temu, that's probably a better example, not the same. Walmart and Target, similar, but not totally the same, right? Dunkin' Donuts versus Life Boost Coffee, which is known for doing this very specific water filtration process. It's like low acid, single origin, pesticide free. People who care about what is going in their body, especially from coffee. It's very different than like Dunkin' Donuts Frappuccino. So the question that you're answering isn't like, is my product good? It is, what do people think when they think of you? And what do you want them to think? There's this idea of mental association when it comes to branding and brand differentiation, and how this perfectly aligns with your social content, your website, any content you're producing, your emails, your pitches. Like everything can revolve and start around this story. And it's also what's going to be this mental shortcut in a consumer's mind so that they think of you immediately. Now, we have a slide of 16 different types of differentiators. So, this is a framework that we look at when we're working with brands. They're going to tell us a little bit about what they do, about their products, and we're going to start to pull out, what is making this brand unique and how can they stand out. So, our job is to really figure out which one applies to you and which ones apply to you, because it can be, many of the same ones. So walking through these, quality makes a sense, right? Are you the premium version? Are you accessible? Both are very valid. You have Temu, you have Lululemon, you have Zara, you have Gap. Those are different in terms of quality. It's very different positioning. So if you think about like in the CPG world, a pressed juice, think pressed juicery versus like a grocery store juice. Same category, but very, very different when it comes to quality. The grocery store juices like Naked have been sitting on the shelf for days and they're made to be shelf stable, whereas pressed juicery are using higher quality ingredients and they're really not as shelf stable, where you want to be drinking them in a certain amount of time. Audience, who is your product specifically designed for? Is it a protein bar that's made for women over 40 that is dealing with a lot of like hormonal menopause shifts? That's a story versus just a healthy snack. Obviously we have brand story in general, and we'll obviously dig into this very deeply, but some brands go really, really deep on that brand story. Brand personality. So tone, voice, aesthetics, some brands are really casual. And when they are, engaging with consumers and customers in their community online, they're going to put emojis and they're going to be a little bit more playful. Whereas some brands have this very polished demeanor and they're not going to do that, right? So what is your thing? What features does your product have? Is it a unique delivery mechanism? Is it a certain blend of ingredients, a format, a service that does something completely different? And today I'm kind of going between product and entrepreneurs. So you might be a service provider as well. Like we work with a lot of nutritionists, we work with wellness practitioners, we work with doctors, chiropractors in that space as well. So I'm going to go back and forth between those two kind of examples for this. Design and aesthetics, like what does your packaging look like? What is your website? What does your branding look like? Performance, does it work better? Does it last longer? Does it taste better? Service, and this is specifically for, direct to consumer brands, but maybe your unboxing experience, maybe it's a subscription model. If you are a service-based business, maybe you have 24/7 customer support. Maybe you're super high touch. Pricing, are you super cost effective or are you actually marketing to millionaires? What are your ingredients? Are they organic? Are they, sustainable? Is it minimal ingredients? Is it no seed oils? Is it regeneratively farmed? These are all angles, and this is part of your brand story. Formula, so how is it made? Like, how did you come to this? It can also be your process, right? If you have a certain way that you work with customers, clients, and patients, what is that way that you do so? Your process and technology, your methodology, very similar, expertise and credentials. So we see a lot of brands that were started by people who have major credentials in an industry. For instance, maybe you are a registered dietitian and you go on to start a like healthy soda brand. Maybe it was formulated by a dermatologist. Maybe you are a chef and now you do nutrition counseling. So you have this background that you pull into your brand story. Maybe it's community and culture. Values. So, what do you provide in your category that no one else does? It's unique to you. And sustainability and social responsibility. So, we're seeing this more and more as consumers are becoming more aware of what they're putting into their bodies. Say you have a clothing company, and I'll give the example of packed clothing in just a couple of minutes, but people are aware of these things. So, is it sustainable? Is it socially responsible? Where are you getting these ingredients? So, many of these might resonate with you. I'm sure a number of them actually come together and resonate with you. And I'll just move my head out of the way so you can see everything. You can screenshot this if you'd like. But this is really the process that we take brands through. And we're thinking to ourselves, like when we have someone for a personalized PR plan, that's where brands just like give us all their information. We write their strategy, we write their pitch for them. We're asking ourselves these questions. Like, are their features different? Are the ingredients different? Like, we worked with a salsa brand not too long ago out of Canada, and we're asking ourselves, okay, what is different about these ingredients? Well, she was sourcing it all local, all things that were from local farms and local providers. And that's something really interesting for many people. They want to be close to their community. So, what is your thing? Now, let's go through a couple of examples. So, we have quality here. So, Pact is a clothing company that is all about the actual ingredients that are used in our clothing. A lot of what we wear is quite toxic, and this is like one of those industries that's, I think, new to be disrupted. So, Pact is really leaning on, cotton materials and materials that are not synthetic, materials that are not hormone disrupting for women and men. So that's what they're leaning on. Whereas you have Temu on the other side of the equation, it's super cheap. You're not paying for quality, you are paying for price. And that's where quality can change. Let's go through some of these that really lean on their brand story. And they've done this really well. So Halo Top, everyone knows this ice cream company, right? It's not my favorite. I would say my favorite is Van Leeuwen, which really like went in on the quality, I would say. So Halo Top, they've kind of made themselves known as this like low calorie ice cream, and they told the story of why, and that's a really big reason that they started, and that was kind of like what they drove home. They were like, it's relatable too, right? We like ice cream, we wanted to eat more of it, so we decided to make it healthier. Super easy, and think about how memorable that is. Then you have Airbnb. This is a brand that was started on that small scale, kind of like Facebook, and grew into something much bigger. And it was like friends sleeping in friends' houses, and they just wanted to like exchange places to stay. Siete Foods is a good example, right? So they really leaned on this Mexican American family story who's navigating autoimmune disease and wanting to follow elimination diet, but without losing the food that connects them to their culture, right? So it's relatable. It's emotional too. It ties in our heartstrings. And they made grain-free tortillas that tasted like home. So that is like the basis of that. Now, as we go through this, I hope this is just like prompting you to think about, yeah, what is my story? What is that thing that I can lean on and really, really own? Let's go into like ingredients and formula. So I gave three beauty brands here. We have ILIA, we have Native, and we have Versed. So you've probably seen these brands on the shelves. So ILIA leads with their clean, skin-forward ingredients. It's not just makeup, it's about like skincare. And this framing really got them into editorial everywhere. So you can look up ILIA, go on their website, see all their press. That is the story that they're driving home. Now we have Native deodorant, and they really built their brand on the absence of aluminum and harsh chemicals. So if you have a product, it's like, what did you remove that everyone else is doing? And their pitch to press wasn't like, oh, we make deodorant. It's we make deodorant that doesn't compromise your health, right? So you kind of pull on what is the conventional story that most deodorants are like not good for us, also going like directly into our body, onto our skin, largest organ, going into our lymphatic system. They did the opposite. And then we have Verse that really made effective skincare transparent, accessible, and their whole thing is like it shouldn't cost a fortune. So everyone has an angle. Like even Chomps, I love like the grass-fed meat sticks, no antibiotics, no sugar, no fillers, and that's their story in the pitch, right? It's changing the game. What's in your product that maybe your category is ignoring? Like what do you refuse to put in your product? And this is like mainly for products here. Let's keep going. I know this is a lot of CPG examples, but it's just like so, so helpful. Everyone knows these brands and they really broke the industry narrative. So they use the idea of tension as their angle. So soda is a massive category. It's been here for a long time. Like you don't really see a lot of new emerging soda brands. Do you realize that? Like think about what's in the stores. It's like the same things that have been in the stores since I was a kid. You have your Pepsi, your Coke, Mountain Dew, all that. So Olipop, Poppy, they really walked into that tension and said, hey, like we love soda, we like the carbonation. How do we change this up so it's actually good for the gut? And editorial and press picked up on this so quickly because they were like, okay, we love this. Everyone loves soda, but they don't like the unhealthy part of it. So that's why that story landed really, really well. Then we have credentials and founders story, and this is where we start to be able to merge our background, our expertise, our credential, and bring it into whether it's a product or a service-based business. So Mary Ruth Vitamin Company, I use it with my own child. I've used it even before I had a kid, and it's a great example of a founder and her expertise meeting ingredient transparency and really leading with that. So, health educator, nutritionist who started making these liquid vitamins for the family. And she really built the brand on the belief that most supplements are poorly absorbed, it's not good ingredients, and very complicated. So, it's about like simplicity, it's about actually good sourced ingredients that are going to help our bodies. So, it was the perfect thing for editors to, feature in gift guides, wellness roundups. So, starting to think about what this looks like for you. Now, if you are a service provider, thinking about what is your expertise, what is your methodology, and maybe you're building a community around it. So, the holistic psychologist on Instagram, Dr. Nicole LaPera, has a huge Instagram following. I probably should even update this because this is old in comparison now. But she was able to not just like list her credentials, but really build a methodology for helping people understand themselves. So, what is that clear point of view that you have in your industry and what's already broken, right? So she's saying like, if you go to a therapist, they're just gonna like do talk therapy and like maybe it's a little bit deeper. It's about true healing. So how does your background and your expertise and your credentials merge into the work that you are doing now? Now let's turn this on you. So you can even grab a notebook as I take you through these questions. But let's think about it, right? What do you specifically or your product do that no one else does? So, visibility on purpose is an example of this as well. So, we are not an agency. We do not do done for you services. We do not pitch for you. What we did do is we started educating around public relations for new emerging content brands, creators, and CPG brands, most of whom do not have the budget to spend $10,000 a month on an agency just yet. A lot of the clients that we do work with end up doing really well and growing the brand to a place where they want to outsource this work. Perfect. But we are that starting point for so many brands that they didn't have. And this wasn't really in the industry, right? No one knew about public relations. I studied public relations in college and we didn't learn about pitching. We learned about press releases. And like that was the end of it, right? Not deeply telling a story. And obviously, social media has changed this a lot. So, anywho, what do you or your product do differently? That's a great starting point. Now, why did you start your brand? So Lydia and I started this company because I was actually running a publishing company, and obviously with books, you want people to know about it. So I'm there talking to the authors that I've been working with, telling them how to pitch the media, how to pitch podcasts, how to pitch TV, and realizing that there's a huge disconnect and most people don't know how to do this. And that there's like lots of fear around this, especially when it's, you're just starting. So I teamed up with Lydia, who's been a publicist for a decade, has her own agency, and we started this create to really create more space in this industry and for anyone to come in. Democratizing is the word I'm looking for. Democratizing. Next question. Who is your product not for? So our product specifically is not for brands who have a huge budget and do not have the time to do any of this themselves. At that point, we're like, hey, yeah, just go to an agency. You don't have time to do it. Like, you would be better off spending your time elsewhere. What do you believe about your industry that most people wouldn't say it out loud? Well, we believe is that brands can do this themselves. You don't need this information does not need to be gate kept, and it has been for years. That's just how it worked. What differentiators are most prevalent for your brand? So think back to those 16 differentiators that we started with. Like, what's most prevalent for you? And lastly, what do customers say about your brand? And one of the biggest pieces of feedback we get is, oh, like you made this possible for us. We had no idea where to start and you broke it down really easily. And for that, we're grateful. So, what do your customers say about your product? Now, if you're a completely new brand, you don't have that product out yet, start to do some market research. Maybe share your product with people. If you have a service, beta test, like get some feedback from the outside world. That's going to be really important. Turning your story into the PR angle. So I have an example here, and this is really where a lot of brands do get stuck. You need to find your differentiator. You got to feel good about it. And then you're going to write a pitch about the product and you just like list the certifications. No one's responding. So we make a line of grain-free, paleo-friendly tortillas available in almond flour and cassava. No, Our family has been eating Mexican food our whole lives. When my sister was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, had to go grain-free, we weren't willing to let that erase a piece of our culture. So we spent 2 years figuring out how to make a tortilla that tasted like home with an ingredient that she could digest. Okay, that's more of an angle. That's a story they can pick up. It's something they can work with. It's something that we can connect to. So you're going to now take that story, take that thing that you lean on, and you're going to start to transform that into an angle, a story that really hooks in conflict, character, resolution, why this is such a good fit for what's going on. And that brings me to my next and I believe last slide of today. Yes. Which is, what do journalists actually want? And I've done so many videos, talking about how the media works. So if you need that, just go and watch some of those right now. But you have to be thinking about journalists are producing stories and content, and podcast hosts and TV anchors. They are producing content that's going to resonate with their audience. So it's not just about, I'm going to pitch you, my product's awesome, that's awesome, but that's not really going to land. So instead, we're thinking about, what is the human angle? Like, why do people care about this? What's going to tie in the heartstrings? What are people going to relate to? Timeliness. So what's going on in the world that makes your product or your service so hot right now? Like, why does this matter? Why? Why does it matter? Surprise or tension? Like, what's unexpected about this brand? Oh, and I missed one as I'm going through this. We'll go back to that in a second. So surprise or tension? What's unexpected? What is something that you do different? How are you calling out something that isn't always done? So it's different. Then let's go back to exclusivity. So if you have a new product, writers might want exclusivity and to get in first, like first dibs on that story. That's usually happens as well. Relatability, as I mentioned, where do readers like see themselves in this story? Is this something that makes people excited, understood, validated? And last but not least, like specific. It's better to not just be like, here's our protein bar, but here's our protein bar formulated for women in their 40s who are starting to go through all these hormonal change, and this is going to be something that like supports them. So very, very specific. Remember that you want to make a journalist job much easier. You want to have a clear angle, a compelling hook, a very defined point of view, and something that they're going to want to cover because it's exciting for them too. So there you have it. And if you've been watching this and feeling like, okay, I get a sense of my story, but I don't really know how to shape that into a pitch strategy, or you just need like the third party to kind of pull it out of you and say, hey, like, did you realize that your background doing this, doing X, Y, and Z is actually super cool? And that people are going to care about it because a lot of us think like no one cares, but we do. So, of course, we have our personalized PR plans, but keep following the channel. Please like, comment, subscribe. We'd love to keep making these videos. And of course, we'd love to work with you one-on-one. So you can find more information about how to work with us here. But I just want you to remember that this is possible for you to get the brand covered, to get the product covered, to get you as the founder coverage. It does take time, it takes strategy, but you are not alone, and this can be such a great needle mover for the brand in general. So drop a comment below. What is your brand differentiator? Tell me your brand. I want to know. I want to look up your website, and we will see you in the next video.